My parents celebrated my miracle child little sister on my birthday instead of me every year, but I completely lost it when I turned 18 and went off on my parents in front of everyone. Now, only after my relatives are mad at them are my parents trying to apologize, but I don't know if I can ever forgive them. Growing up as the unwanted child really messes with your head. I have a sister who's 8 years younger than me. She was completely unplanned and almost didn't make it. My mom was in and out of hospitals that whole year and nearly died during childbirth. The doctors told her she couldn't have any more kids after that, and because of all this drama around her birth, my parents treated my sister like some miracle baby who could do no wrong. They would literally call her a gift from heaven, and I became just the other kid in the house, the forgotten one, except when they needed free childcare, of course. Then suddenly I became relevant again, but only as an unpaid babysitter. The level of favoritism was so extreme that I genuinely think my parents have something mentally wrong with them for not seeing what it was doing to me. Now it's all coming back to bite them pretty hard, which I'll get into later. It all started around my 11th birthday. My sister was 3 then, and she cried because she saw a birthday cake that wasn't for her. Instead of, parenting her and explaining that sometimes other people get things that aren't for you, my parents forced me to let her blow out my candles. They just handed her over to me and made me hold her while she spit all over my cake. Everyone was cooing over how cute my sister was, and nobody even looked at me. Then they did the same thing the next year, and the year after that. Eventually, it just became expected that she'd blow out my candles before me, like it was some kind of twisted family tradition. My sister also got presents on my birthdays. Not just one token gift to keep her quiet, but multiple presents, often nicer than what I received. I never got anything on hers. When I asked why, they gave me this bullshit answer that I'm a boy, and boys don't need to worry about that stuff as much, as if my gender somehow made me less worthy of celebration or attention. Every birthday celebration had to be at places my sister would enjoy, never anywhere I wanted to go. Even when I specifically requested something, they'd find a way to twist it into something she'd like better. It got to the point where it felt like my sister was getting 2 birthdays a year and I had none. Mine was just another excuse to celebrate her. This favoritism extended to everything else too. Family outings, only to places she liked. Dinner choices, whatever she wanted to eat. TV shows, only what she enjoyed watching. I learned to just hide in my room playing video games because that was the only time I got any peace. I even put a lock on my door because my sister would just barge in whenever she wanted, usually to turn off my game or take my headset. And when I get mad at her for that, she'd cry and my parents would always come swooping in to defend her. My sister developed this crazy princess complex because of how they spoiled her. She was demanding and bossy and treated me like her personal servant. If I didn't immediately jump up to get her a snack or toy, she'd scream until I did. She even had this stupid nickname for me that made my blood boil every time she used it, Servant Boy, and my parents thought it was adorable. If I didn't jump to give her whatever she wanted, she'd cry to our parents and I'd get in trouble for mistreating her or not being a good big brother. Eventually, my relationship with my parents became basically just silence. I barely spoke to them for long stretches of time. I just nod or shake my head when they asked me questions. I went weeks without speaking a word to them. Yet during my high school graduation, they had the nerve to brag to other parents about how they were the reason I worked so hard. Well, they weren't wrong exactly. I did work hard to move out and escape them. That was my primary motivation for everything. After my graduation, we went to Chuck E. Cheese because my sister wanted to, even though it was supposed to be my celebration. Just another day in my life as the forgotten child. Things finally exploded on my 18th birthday this July. I'd hoped maybe they'd take me to my favorite restaurant for once. It's this really nice steakhouse I'd been talking about for months. Nope. They had my party at Chuck E. Cheese. Again, it particularly felt like a slap in the face since we'd already gone there for my graduation, and it was so boring. Just mediocre pizza and outdated arcade games for prizes nobody over 10 would want. But my sister loved it, so that's where we went. When the cake came out, it was pink with white flowers. It had my name, but it was clearly a girl's cake, like something you'd get for a princess-themed party. Then they set it in front of my sister to blow out, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. My mom was already taking pictures of her and not even looking at me. That's when I lost it. Everything I'd been holding in for 8 years just erupted. I started ugly crying. Me, an 18-year-old guy, sobbing in front of the whole family. Everyone froze. I got up and just word vomited everything I'd been feeling for years. How they'd made me feel invisible. How they'd given all my special moments to my sister. How I couldn't remember the last time I felt like I mattered in my own home. Then I walked outside to sit by the car, shaking and still crying. Several relatives followed me out, saying they were sorry and that they didn't know about the cake because my parents kept it covered until it was time. I told them it didn't matter what they knew about the cake. They'd all sat back and watched my sister take over my life for the past 8 years. They'd seen it happen at every family gathering and said nothing. I never had any real celebrations of my own. Everything was about her. I pointed out where we were. Did it look like a place I'd want to celebrate my high school graduation and 18th birthday? I wasn't even allowed to invite friends anymore after they dared to question why my sister got to blow out my candles a few years back. Out of 365 days in a year, couldn't I have one that was about me and not her? I started crying again, unable to control the flood of emotions pouring out. My dad came out to yell at me for making a scene because my mom was crying. My sister was upset about her moment being ruined, and everyone inside now thought they were bad parents. I yelled back that they were bad parents, and they knew exactly why. I wasn't making a scene. I was finally standing up for myself after years of being pushed aside. That's when the family went full wolf pack mode. They all surged back inside with my dad, and I could hear them confronting my parents. My grandparents stayed with me and apologized for not seeing what was happening sooner. My grandmother kept hugging me and saying she should have done something years ago. About half an hour later, my parents came back out looking completely defeated. My mom was still sniffling, and neither could look me in the eye. They awkwardly apologized and offered to redo the party somewhere else, like that would magically fix 8 years of being treated like I didn't matter. But the family wasn't letting them off that easy. One of my uncles cleared his throat really loudly, and my parents then promised they'd never make me let my sister blow out my candles again or give her presents on my birthday. They looked like children being forced to apologize. Another throat clearing, and they also apologized for getting a cake that wasn't even meant for me. Then they tried to justify it by saying they thought I wasn't worried about cake at my age, as if turning 18 meant I suddenly didn't care about having my own cake on my own birthday. That set me off again. I yelled that my age didn't matter. They'd literally given my birthday to my sister with no good reason. I told them there was no point in redoing the party because it was too late. They'd shown me I meant nothing to them. They'd ruined 8 years of my life. What future birthdays with them could I possibly look forward to? The damage was already done. My dad started getting angry, but the whole family shouted him down. My grandfather told him I was right and there was no way they could fix the damage now. He called them awful awful people who played favorites and treated me like the black sheep since my sister was born. He added that everyone else was awful too for letting it happen, and I deserved more than just an apology. I deserved my life back. I'd never seen my grandfather so angry before, and it felt validating to finally have someone standing up for me. My mom broke down again and tried to approach me, but the family physically blocked her. I started walking away because I couldn't take it anymore. One of my aunts chased me down and brought me back, saying I needed to hear what happened next. And where was my sister during all this? Still inside, eating my cake and opening my presents. My parents actually served her cake after I cried and left, one of which was a brand new smartphone that she threw against the wall and broke when she wasn't allowed to keep it. Mind you, she'd just gotten a new phone for her own birthday a few months earlier. But apparently one phone wasn't enough for the princess. I spent that night at my grandparents' house. When I went home, I still wouldn't speak to my parents. My mom kept crying because I was ignoring her, and my dad was just silent. The atmosphere was so tense you could cut it with a knife. I just stayed in my room, packing my things and planning my escape. The next weekend, my grandparents convinced me to go out to dinner with them. Surprise! It was a whole new party. My parents were there with those "please don't hate us" smiles plastered on their faces. There was a big chocolate cake with 18 candles and a banner with my name. They called it my belated birthday graduation party. Everyone was trying too hard to be cheerful, which just made it uncomfortable. I tried to act happy, but one party doesn't erase 8 years of being treated like I didn't matter. My sister was there too, sitting with her arms folded and her lip curled because for once it wasn't all about her. Instead of singing happy birthday, they sang some altered version called happy day. As soon as I blew out the candles, my sister let out this ear-piercing scream that nearly shattered glass. My parents had to take her outside and came back looking more upset than ever. I did get a new smartphone, and my sister's was taken away for breaking mine. But the biggest surprise was that the whole family had chipped in to get me a car. It was just an old white Volvo, but I loved it immediately. My grandfather had fixed it up himself, spending weeks getting it into perfect condition. My sister screamed again when she saw it and had a massive tantrum, demanding a car too. My mom had to take her to the bathroom and didn't come back for ages. My dad just looked defeated again, like he was finally seeing the monster they'd created. Multiple family members told my parents that my sister was acting this way because they'd raised her to be a spoiled princess. I started driving my new car right away, enjoying the first real freedom I'd ever had. But a few days later, my sister took a hammer and smashed 2 side windows and cracked the windshield so badly I couldn't drive it. My parents stopped her before she could do more damage, but she screamed and tried to bite them when they took the hammer away. She actually drew blood on my dad's arm. It was like watching a feral animal, not an 8-year-old girl. Everyone was furious, especially my grandparents, since my grandfather had put so much work into the car. Several family members told my parents they were setting my sister up for a terrible adult life by making her an entitled brat who expects everything to be handed to her. They pointed out that this kind of behavior would make her unable to function in the real world. My sister's punishment? Grounded for the rest of summer and sent to boarding school for the new school year. My mom cried about it, but my dad insisted it was the only way to start fixing the damage they'd caused. They finally admitted they were at fault. Hard not to, when literally no one took their side, and there was physical evidence of how badly they'd failed as parents. My sister is completely miserable at boarding school. She hates the clothes, the rules, everything. She lies constantly, but gets caught because there are cameras everywhere. When our parents visit, she just screams at them for putting her there. From what I hear, she might be staying there until she's 18. Part of me feels sorry for her, because it's not entirely her fault. She was just raised to be this way. But another part of me is relieved that she's finally facing consequences. My parents did pay to fix my car, at least. In August, my grandfather found me a job with a friend of his, but it was 40 miles away. He suggested I move out rather than commute. I was totally on board with that idea. Finding my first apartment wasn't easy. I had to get a credit card just to get approved for a studio, but I did it. I've been living on my own since September, and it's been the most peaceful few months of my life. My parents keep trying to contact me, but I rarely talk to them. When we do speak, it's just awkward and uncomfortable. My grandfather thinks they're just trying to ease their own guilt by getting me to forgive them, but I'm not ready to forgive them anytime soon. I'm finally happy away from them, and I'm not going to let them ruin that. Now they've got nothing. They don't have me, and they don't have my sister. They had to take more hours at work because boarding school isn't cheap. Neither was that makeup party or fixing my car. Empty house, angry relatives, and nothing but work. I don't take any pleasure in their misery, but it is the result of their own actions. They had 8 years to fix things, and they chose not to until it was too late. Edit. I'd like to thank everyone for all the awards I've gotten. It really means a lot to me. I know my post was long and a lot to read, but I just needed to get the whole thing out, and I feel a lot better after having done so. It's actually quite therapeutic to have people validate my feelings after so many years of being gaslit into thinking I was just being selfish or dramatic. I noticed a few calling this post fake in the comments in various ways. I do not blame you. I'd be highly skeptical reading this and wondering the same things in your shoes, but I lived it. Some parents just really are like that. I've also been contacted by a few people who went through similar and even way worse situations. With all the bad parents out there, is it really all that unbelievable as to what mine did? Unfortunately, extreme favoritism happens more often than people realize. Granted, the whole family running back into the restaurant to have words with my parents did seem like a stretch, but I come from one of those close-knit families where we stick together a lot and do things in groups, and it can very easily turn into an entire group against one person at gatherings. I've seen a drunk cousin be surrounded and then removed from the party to sober up in another room because he was being highly inappropriate. I'm not exactly a fan of group mentalities myself, but it ended up saving me because my parents were shamed beyond words for what they'd done. They couldn't even form a proper reason as to why they did what they did to me without sounding like even worse people. So they've basically surrendered, saying they have no excuse and are heavily trying to get on my good side. And while a lot of you are praising my relatives for how they helped me, I'm pretty sure a lot of that help was out of shame. They were there for most of those 8 birthdays, save for 2 years because of COVID. But in those other 6, they didn't do anything. They had disapproving looks on their faces that my sister got to blow out my candles, but they just stayed quiet. Why? Well, my dad is the son of the head of the family, my grandfather. And my grandfather is a fairly intimidating person. Be on his good side, and he'd do whatever it takes to help you. Be on his bad side, and the entire family hates you. A good reason why I don't like group mentalities. But once my grandfather basically said they were all at fault for not doing anything to help me for years, they all felt shamed, and they all chipped in for the cost of my car. With so many relatives, they didn't have to donate much each to afford it. I had the receipt for the car when I registered it in my name. They bought it for $2,000 and then put more into it for some parts and tires. My grandfather personally gave it a tune-up and changed the fluids. My grandmother deep cleaned the interior. I'm extremely thankful to them all, but I still want to distance myself a bit. I need time to work things out on my own, and I probably won't see my parents again until Thanksgiving or Christmas, if then. Some have also compared my sister to that character Eric Cartman from South Park, and it's a pretty close comparison. My sister is chubby because my parents fed her a lot of junk food. She hates eating anything healthy. I once saw her put gummy bears on mashed potatoes. The thought of eating the combination turns my stomach. Her poor diet also made her spend long periods in the bathroom. My parents had to buy fiber snacks for her to eat just to remedy that, and I don't think they were cheap to get the ones that actually tasted good. My sister is also extremely bossy and likes to think she's in charge. She ordered me around near constantly, which is why I often locked myself in my room to get away from her. She lost a lot of friends for being so bossy and controlling, and my parents would just tell her that the other kids were just jealous of how special she was. My sister even referred to herself as a princess often, and the epic tantrums she had when not getting her way do remind me of Eric Cartman. I know my sister isn't stupid either. She doesn't try very hard at all and had a C average in school. If she actually applied herself, she'd probably be a straight A student. Edit 2. It looks like I've been banned from this subreddit. Not sure what I did, but maybe I made the post too long. Either way, I can't answer comments anymore. Sorry, but I do thank everyone here that gave me positive feedback from the bottom of my heart. Thank you all. Update 2 to my parents giving my sister my birthday for 8 years. It's been what, a year now? I didn't log back in for a long time because I thought I was done here. But then one day I decided what the heck and just popped back in again, only to see numerous private messages asking for updates. So I'll give one. What I'm about to tell you is mostly pieced together from what my parents and grandparents told me. So if it sounds too crazy, just remember I'm basically retelling what I found out. Yes, I'm doing fine, but the same cannot be said for my parents and little sister. My sister, sometime after my previous post, attempted several things in order to get out of boarding school. After none of her lies and schemes got her anything, she tried to simply do nothing, but that didn't work out. Then she tried a hunger strike. She said she would refuse to eat anything unless our parents came and took her home. My mother nearly jumped in the car to go rescue her baby, but my father had to stand in her way and remind her my sister's behavior was their fault. My sister's hunger strike didn't even last 2 days before she was demanding food in the cafeteria. She wasn't allowed sweets or snacks unless they were healthy, especially since a pediatrician warned my parents that my sister was at risk of future diabetes and even possibly having her growth stunted unless she got her weight under control and ate foods with proper nutrients, as in no more gummy bears on mashed potatoes. Of course, my sister tried becoming a bully to the other girls in the boarding school, but they didn't take her crap. One day, she picked a fight and got beaten up pretty badly when she was set upon by multiple other girls at once, and as a crowd, they kicked her until they were broken up by a teacher. My sister didn't suffer any serious injuries, but she was scraped and bruised all over. Yes, she blamed everyone else but herself, and I heard she actually stated that the other girls should just do as she says. They did not, so she was shunned by them. I heard she had quite the tantrum over it. She'd gotten her way with everyone for so long that it was mentally inconceivable for her to not get what she wanted. My mother repeatedly snuck junk food to my sister at the boarding school, and my sister got caught with it. My parents had a huge fight about it, but my mother didn't try to sneak her any more junk food once the jig was up. My sister was and still desires to be a junk food addict. That's right, she's barely changed in the past year. Are any of you really surprised? I'm not. She's only slightly better in the fact she's somewhat more accepting she's not the center of the universe. Her schemes to get out of boarding school only escalated. After only a few months there, she resorted to self-harm to try and get her way. She somehow got her hands on a knife in the cafeteria and stood on a table threatening herself with it unless they gave her candy and sent her home. Yes, she didn't just demand to be sent home. She wanted candy too. I did say before that I'd seen her put gummy bears on mashed potatoes in my original post. Her favorite thing to put gummy bears on was on food she didn't like, because that's the only way that our parents could get her to eat it. Can you imagine gummy bears on salad? It kind of defeats the point of salad, but she regularly brought a bag of gummy bears to the table when we ate. I can't even look at gummy bears without remembering. Well, my sister was brought what sweets they could scrounge up while they tried to talk her down, but at some point she slipped and fell off the table. The resulting fall broke her left arm, her clavicle, and she had a forehead concussion. At this point, even the boarding school had enough of her and didn't want her to return once out of hospital. In fact, her attempt at ending herself only landed her in a worse place, a mental ward for children. She's been forced into therapy and diagnosed with a heavy case of narcissism she was raised into having. She cannot leave the ward unless my parents take her out. They've also forced her to continue her schooling from there and keep to a very strict, healthy diet. It could literally be described as her personal hell. My mother wanted to go to the ward and get her precious baby out, but she and my father got in a huge fight about it, and in that fight she hit him with the nearest thing she could grab, which happened to be a bottle that was on the kitchen counter. The bottle broke on his face, cracked his cheekbone, and cut him up pretty badly. Police were called, and he had to be taken to the hospital while my mother had to be carted away in the back of a police car. My mother ended up getting psych evaluated and committed for several months herself, and she was forced to confront her own fierce desires to enable my sister. Turns out it stems from serious mental traumas my mother had from her own childhood, but no one else knows or will tell me anything more than that. There was, and still is, talk of future divorce for my parents, but neither of them have gone any farther than sleeping in separate bedrooms so far. As for me, well, my 19th birthday wasn't that long ago. My grandparents threw me a party at a restaurant they know I like. My parents attended, and so did my sister. She was briefly allowed time out of the ward, and I could see the pure bitterness in her eyes. She sat there looking just like before, lip curled and glaring at me like she wanted me to be on fire. She'd lost a fair bit of weight by then since she hadn't been allowed junk food for so long, and her diet plan is going to keep on for some time to come. In fact, the junk food from my birthday party was the first she'd had in a pretty long time, but she still couldn't stand not being the center of attention. This time, when I blew out my candles, she did not scream. Instead, she began ugly crying. I can tell you right now that this was just more of her manipulation. She was just crying and saying why over and over again. I know she's only 9, but remember, last year she was 8 and demanding a car of her own just because I was gifted one at 18. She can't even get a learner's permit till she's 15. At my 19th birthday, my sister got on the floor at a tantrum that there was no pizza, no gifts for her, no prizes, no nothing. Then she started cursing at our parents before trying to storm out of the restaurant. She was basically trying to copy what I did last year, in her own twisted way. You can say I'm thinking too hard about that, but I know my sister, and if she thinks doing something will get her way, she'll do it. My parents just apologized to everyone and then took my sister home early, but not before my grandfather went over to speak to them. I got some details from my grandmother later. He told them that they better not take my sister to party elsewhere or give her what she wants, because this will never end if they don't stop for good. After that, my sister was taken out kicking and screaming because she'd heard everything and realized her tantrums didn't work. She was driven back to the ward the next morning, and that's where she is now. I have no idea how much longer she'll be there. She's just a kid, but the most stubborn one I've ever seen. She'll likely not change until she reaches her lowest point. point, and until then, she's going to be stuck in a place that does no enabling of her demands. No one, not even my parents, have attempted to put any blame on me for my sister's actions this past year. They've had to accept that I had zero fault in this, and they raised my sister to be a narcissist. And enabling a narcissist is also a form of addiction from what I've seen and heard. My sister has not been diagnosed with any sort of mental illnesses aside from narcissism. In fact, she's smarter than me from what I've heard. She was tested having an IQ of around 110. She just doesn't like to apply herself unless there's some kind of reward in it for her. She was raised this way, and I'm guessing it'll take years to make her better. As for me, well, I'm doing well on my own. I admit, I had to learn to properly budget and take care of all my own necessities. It's not easy to adult, but it's still 1,000 times better than the life I'd be living with my parents and sister. Edit. Someone has brought up that my sister being in a long-term ward for just narcissism makes no sense. I agree that normally it wouldn't. If there's any deeper diagnosis, then it's been kept from me. I can tell there are some things they don't tell me, and I'm not able to just ask the doctor because I'm not my sister's parent. That said, my sister is also very self-destructive to try and get her way. Her threatening to use a knife on herself to get out of boarding school was actually just one of many similar incidents that followed. Since being in the ward, she's been made to realize she's not a princess, but at the same time, she still has a mentality to do whatever it takes to get her way. After my 19th birthday, she made similar threats of self-harm to my parents if they didn't take her out to eat fast food, and then tried to harm herself after being denied. Her most common tactic is to hit her head on a wall. My mother didn't want to report this to the ward, but my father did. My sister can and has committed self-harm for emotional blackmail in the past month alone. Though her attempts have become fewer from what I know, she also apparently lies and says her own doctors hurt her, but her stories never add up. So I guess on top of narcissism, pathological lying might also be a factor. And all that information I just gave is very likely why she's in a long-term ward. If she was home, my parents would slowly cave to her demands all over again, and then things would just go back to how they were somewhat, which is likely something she's counting on. Update 3. To clear up questions people had in the comments, this isn't just some lame, jealous older brother stuff. My sister may not have gotten to blow out my candles till she was 3, but even before that she was also celebrated just as much on my own birthdays in front of everyone. And I grew extremely resentful. Imagine the birthday boy sitting there while his mother just flaunts a baby in front of everyone because the gathering gave her an excuse to show off. I was basically ignored by my parents until it was time for cake. My grandparents made up the difference, so it wasn't such a bad memory at the time. They even told me it was slightly understandable because my sister had just been born a month prior, and my mother had such a hard time with her pregnancy. But then that's how things went down my 9th birthday, and no one said or did anything about it. Then on my 10th birthday, my parents basically did the same thing, and flaunted all of my sister's baby accomplishments before anything really happened for me. And then some of my gifts were obvious toddler toys that were only enjoyed by my sister. I remember them being called extra gifts, and even though my name was on them, they weren't for me. Again, no one in the family said or did anything about it. Then on my 11th birthday, that's when things became truly bad. There were gifts with my sister's name on them, and my parents insisted she be allowed to blow out my candles. Everyone saw, and they all did nothing. And following this, the birthday venues were always oriented towards my sister, and sometimes she was even allowed to help me unwrap my presents too. It wasn't help. They just wanted me to placate her. Now multiply all of that to my 18th birthday, and you'll understand why I finally lost it on everyone back then. My parents admitting fault really wasn't enough for me anymore after that. I try to act like I can forgive them, but I'm not sure I ever can. Someone else pointed out to me that you cannot be diagnosed as a narcissist until you're 18. I'm pretty ignorant about this sort of thing, and took my father's word for it. So I called my father this morning and spoke to him about it. He first asked me how I knew, and I just responded with Google. He sighed and admitted my sister was showing signs of possible future NPD and some other things. But an official diagnosis can't be made yet. But there's also a strong possibility of a mental disorder my mother also apparently has, and they won't tell me what it is. My parents finally admitted my mother was diagnosed with both said disorder and PTSD months ago. The PTSD triggered from some childhood traumas my mother will not disclose, nor am I asking her to, because whatever it is, it's pretty bad. When I asked my father why I was told such simplified details and white lies, he got angry and told me it's because my sister's their problem and not mine. So he just thought I'd let it go if he told me that. Then he said they need to be the ones to worry about my sister. I just need to focus on my future and forget about having to deal with her ever again. It's sadly one of the most logical things he's ever said to me. As for my sister, there's no clear time frame on how long she'll be in that ward. But I had another question for my father that someone else alerted me to hear, and that is if my sister has ever spoken of wanting to kill me while there. The answer was kind of a middle ground. My sister did blame me. However, she blames our parents more. Her main beef with me was her belief that what's hers is hers, and what was mine should also be hers. She's even jealous I have my own apartment now. That led to other rage tantrums and demands wanting the same things I have. Therapy has subsided her rage bit by bit over time, which is why she was allowed to be at my 19th birthday. But her behavior the day escalated all over again. Ever see a toddler say mind to anything it sees? Well, my sister has a mind complex with my birthday, and that's 100% on my parents. My sister did and still does believe she is entitled to my birthday because it's been that way as long as she could remember. That's why she screamed last year. That's why she freaked out this year. In her mind, my birthday has always been hers. My parents have asked me to please leave the situation alone, and that my sister is going to need a lot of time to be treated, and there's no guarantee she'll ever get better. My mother's in therapy herself, and her own disorder is medicated now, and she is often lethargic from the medication. She somehow didn't lose her job when she was temporarily put in a ward herself after hitting my father with a bottle. Her boss is a very sympathetic person, and allowed my mother to work from home after getting back, although it resulted in lower pay and some kind of demotion. There's another detail I'd like to clarify that I did not mention in my last post. My birthday this year wasn't the actual date of my birth. Instead, we celebrated the day of the belated party that was held for me last year, which is fine with me, because the actual day of my birthday has been forever soured to me. I was born basically at the end of July. The belated birthday was held a week later in August, and that's the day I wish to celebrate from now on. Lastly, people keep asking how I am doing. I was doing fine, if not pretty decent. I admit it's been hard to adult, paying my bills, learning to manage my finances and all that, but I was fine. Then somehow my coming back to Reddit to talk about this has made me stressed and, what's the term, mentally relapsing, I guess? I'm not sure. I thought I was all good, but now I'm edgy and cynical all the time. My boss even sent me home early for the day because of it. They're well aware of my past, but I still feel terrible. Just having coffee this morning sent my heart pounding. I think I'm gonna have to search local support groups for free counseling or something. I'm on a budget after all. But for the moment, I'm just trying to relax and take my mind off life. I might end up stressed like this all over again if I return here someday, so I may not. I thank everyone who read my posts and understood my my pain. You're good people, but I really need to get myself together and put my past behind me.